Step Into Your Life with Julianne Williams. Today is a very special episode with my friend and colleague, Cheryl Field. She has written a book called Prepared, a Healthcare Guide for Aging, and has really taken on this mission of helping people navigate the healthcare system and also to understand how they can feed their own soul as they're caring for people. So today, she's going to give us a great episode on what we can do as caregivers so that we don't lose our mind, because we do that sometimes. Taking care of other people is hard work, whether that be in a hospital or nursing home or assisted living or at home. And sometimes at home, caregivers have the responsibility of 24/7, which is a daunting task. And anyone who does that is just really, truly an angel on earth. So Cheryl's going to give us some tips so that we can, again, keep our mind healthy, keep our body healthy, and then we can actually take better care of the people that we love and that we're entrusted to care for. So let's bring Cheryl on, and she's going to talk a little bit about herself and then give us some really great tips. Well, good morning or afternoon. We're on different time zones.
Hi, Julianne. Hi, everyone. Yeah, it's great to be here. We're in different time zones. It's the West. You're on the West Coast. I'm on the East Coast. But here we are in February, and people are gearing up. Next week is, of course, National Caregivers Week. And I appreciate having the opportunity to come on and to talk with you today. As you mentioned so kindly in your opening comments, I have been on this mission, very passionate about helping our seniors get the right information that they need around transitions in throughout healthcare. But every one of those seniors is oftentimes guided by an advocate, which in many cases are either adult children or partner spouses, and they step into a role of caregiver. And as you said, that role can be very daunting. And the notion of 24/7, there are just so many things to do, so many tasks to do that caregivers can, very quickly feel isolated, overwhelmed, and alone. And so in honor of our National Caregiver Week, I wanted to spend some time with you and really just kind of give some tips to your audience that really can be used by anyone in the caregiver role at any time to help reduce some stress and increase some resilience and make that role, that chronic role of caregiver, something that you don't burn out from.
And I don't know if this is putting you too much on the spot, but I don't know, for people like me who are administrators, maybe at the end might be able to give us some tips, like how do we support our nurses and our folks that work in all disciplines of the healthcare facility? Because that's part of our job. We're not providing direct care, but we are responsible for providing an environment that allows for them to enjoy their work and to feel supported. So if you do have a few things, we can kind of circle back at the end, because I would love to hear some of the ideas from you as a nurse that I admire. So great.
Well, Julianne, one of the first tips that I teach is, I think, applicable even to administrators with nurses. And the tip that I give is, don't give choices that you don't have, but work really hard to give lots and lots of choices.
Okay.
So, as a caregiver, right, you may not be able to give the choice of, you can't take away someone's diabetes, right? You're diabetic, there's a dietary restriction, there's insulin, but you can give the choice of lots of variety of healthy foods. Take them to the grocery store, let them pick their protein, let them pick their favorite fruits and vegetables, let them pick that, carb that they are going to mix in. And so what's in your home is really reflective of what they want to eat and they want to enjoy to eat. I think as an administrator, right, we can't give the choice of not coming to work or not having enough staff. But I once actually, as a clinical director, I established a program of self-scheduling. I gave all the choice that I could to my nurses. And I said, here's the guidelines. We need 4 of you here, 5 of you here, 6 of you here, and work it out. And they loved it because they had relationships amongst themselves. They had that flexibility. They felt like they had control, and they didn't have to come to me when they needed a day off. They went to their colleagues. They would only come to me if their normal problem solving skills hadn't worked. And so in that spirit of, I couldn't give a choice not to staff the unit, but I gave them a lot of choices, lots of choices around what I could. And I think that as we, I think about my own stress, the more things I feel like I can be in control of, the less stressful the whole experience is. So even for travel for work, right? I don't have a choice not to go on the trip, but it's really nice that my employer lets me go through a travel company and select the flight, the airline, the hotel that works best for me. That makes me feel good and in control, of those kinds of things. So I like to remind, caregivers to give lots of choices. I think when we make a choice, we actually feel empowered. And whether it's the clothes that you're wearing, the foods that you're eating, the time of day that you're doing, maybe you have to do that exercise, you have to do that therapy, but what time of day do you want to do it? Giving those choices, I think, gives people purpose and empowerment, and can help, again, kind of help to relieve some of that friction and some of the stress for the caregiver. That's
a great tip. We talk about that, actually even in psychology, when we talk about raising children, it's called the illusion of choice. And it's okay that we recognize that's what it is, even as an adult. Like, okay, I know like you said, I can't take this way, or I need to go on this trip, but I have a few choices in there. So I'm just not totally trapped. And we do feel much more free when we don't feel like we're totally trapped.
I also think that, it's a bit of a bias, but I think many of the caregivers, from children to spouses to aging parents to chronically ill humans, tend to be women. And I think sometimes women, we don't want to set boundaries, but when we use this expression of giving choices, like, don't give a choice you don't have, that's actually a really kind way of saying you're going to have to set some boundaries. And how do you cope with setting that boundary? You cope by saying, you can choose from all of this. You can't choose from this, but you can choose from all of that. And I think, again, it helps us as women feel like we haven't been so hard and, come in and said, no, you can't do that. It's not going to go this way.
Right. Or that we're just giving everything away, all of our emotional bandwidth, all of, things that we just put us in a position that we're compromising for somebody else so that they can make a decision. Right.
That's a great segue to the second tip that I get, which is make yourself involved with the strategy, the planning, and the decision-making. Delegate the execution. Don't take yourself out of that role where a key decision is going to be made. But maybe once that decision is made and there's a plan that needs to be executed, that's when you pull in those resources. I think as caregivers, a couple of things. I think we tend to want to be superwomen and doing it all ourselves, right? But almost all of us have a network. The minute something happens, you'll hear from a dozen friends, let me know how I can help. I've said these words, you've said those words, you've heard those words. But how many times have you actually allowed yourself to go back and say, you know what? I would like help. I'd like you to do the groceries. Can you grocery shop for me once a week for the next month while I see my aunt through this surgery, my sister through this whatever? And I just don't think that we take people up on the offers to help like we should. And when I do encourage women to do that, I say, look, you take the strategic conversations. You be there for the doctor appointment where a decision is going to be made, but you don't need to drive to every radiology appointment. You don't even have to be there for every chemo treatment. You really could say to that best friend who offered, I would love it if you would take him that day. I think women are oftentimes sandwiched between our careers, and we're at the height of our career at the same time where we're raising children at the same time our parents are aging. So we get sandwiched. And oh, by the way, throw in some menopause on your own side, right?
Did
So
you have to bring that up?
Yeah,
No,
we get
it's true.
sandwiched between these needs.
Yes. Well, and you made me, when you were saying, like taking people up on the offer, the other thing, if I may offer as a suggestion, is in grief. As you know, I'm a certified grief educator. The one thing that I try to get people to think about, and when they're supporting someone who's grieving, when instead of saying, let me know what I can do for you, to say, would it be helpful if I grocery shop for you once a month or once a week or whatever it is? Would it be helpful if I just dropped by the medications because I'm going to CVS or Rite Aid or whatever anyway, and I can just pick it up for you and bring it by? So some of the things that we can do too is when we're supporting someone, taking a step back and saying, what is it that might be challenging, and giving a specific offer, because when people are overwhelmed, many times they can't think of what it is they need. And they feel like if they're asking something that it might be a burden, that one thing they're asking. So instead, you can just make a suggestion.
Yeah, that is great advice. I love that. It allows that person to, one, like you said, the person who's offering to help, they get to pick, right? They're suggesting, like you said, or they know, right? They know something about you. Hey, let me drive to soccer this month, because they know that your kids are on the same team. So I'll just take that. Don't even think about it. I got it. Like, let me do that. And I love that you asked for permission, asking, would it be helpful? And I think in that vein, you're still empowering the caregiver. You're still letting them, right, that strategy, make the decision, but not have to execute. Hopefully, they delegate.
Yeah.
And I find a lot of caregivers who they've taken on every role in the house. And when I teach this, I talk in like an analogy. I'll say, like, imagine a play. When's the last time you went to a really good theatrical show? And now I think of Hamilton. Like, this is a play that's just so many characters and costumes and lines. Imagine if one actor was trying to play multiple roles. Now, you could just think they would run off stage and they would have to change their clothes and come back and say different words and have a different countenance. And after 2 or 3 times, they're coming in with the wrong costume. They're probably half putting their clothes on as they dance across the stage. They don't remember what to say. And this is caregivers. Yeah. When we take on the role of daughter, wife, employee, grocery, lawn, taxi, right? Paying the bills. When we take on all those roles, we are going to run on stage and look messy. If we can delegate and get additional resources into the home or into the plan. And as I say, hold on to strategy, delegate execution. But bringing other people in little, maybe they have a small part, maybe it's not a speaking part in the play, but it's an important one. Like someone who comes from stage left and drops off that bag of groceries and disappears is a wonderful help for the show. Yeah. And so when I talk to caregivers who are feeling like they can't possibly let go of anything, I remind them that they get up in the morning with this much energy, and they can't. It doesn't expand. It's not exponential. If you use this on groceries, you've got this for everything else.
Right.
So by bringing in other resources and looking and accepting help, it really can reduce that stress for that caregiver. And you may need to find, there's permanent help that you may need to find where by paying someone to do a job, you've employed them and you don't have that feeling of I owe you, right? We don't want to be a burden, and we feel when relationships are not equal. And so maybe moving into a permanent relationship where it's a paid, setup is something that's necessary, right? To reduce that, that stress for that caregiver.
Right. Well, what else can we do?
Well, finding resources. Remember, I mentioned 2 things. Caregivers feel very isolated and alone. And I think my observation of caregivers is they start out believing they can do it all themselves and they come to resources late in the game.
Okay.
My advice is, well, wherever you're at, right? Wherever you're at, you can add one resource this week. Think of one thing that you can outsource and do one thing, for yourself. If you're early in the cycle of becoming a caregiver, something is, you've just had a change in health for your partner or your mother, your parent, your aunt, go online, start Googling, find some resources in the community around, again, what are those needs of your loved one? Find resources for yourself. There are caregiver groups on Facebook. So you can just vent at night. You can just talk about how frustrating it is and have another caregiver listen. Find resources for other members of your family, because that change in health affects everyone in the family. And so you might be really, really focused on taking care of mom or dad, and your teenager is feeling a bit left out and not having enough time with you. So think about how you could find resources in a teen club or some kind of support for them. And do it early. Doing it early in the caregiver cycle, I think, helps to build your resilience, right? And to build up your capacity for going that distance.
Right.
I also think we fail to think about even approaching our employers, and we feel vulnerable to say,
oh my goodness,
hey, I'm going through some stuff here, and I may just not be my normal best, I may need a little grace for the next month.
Yeah.
Because I think we try to keep it all together. And I feel like today employers are in a very different place, not only by coming forward and saying to your employer, I've got a lot right now, and I just want to let you know, I may not be my best. Your manager is instantly going to say, oh, wait a minute, we have resources to help you.
Right.
And most employer, the ERP programs that we have through organizations can come in and can really offer some assistance and some help. So sometimes you're afraid to even ask that question, but there's so many resources available. I really encourage people to get that courage and talk to your employer.
And I think, I do think most employers care. Sometimes I think we have so much fear that if we're trying to get a promotion that will be denied, or that, we'll be seen as not committed because we have this other responsibility as well. I feel that as an employer, when I was one, that if I could understand what was happening with the people that I counted on, then they could also count on me.
Well, you said it in your opening comments, Julianne. The administrator's job is to take care of those nurses. If you really don't know what they're going through when they leave work, you're really not able to truly care for them as an employee. And as someone who managed many, nurses for many years, I wanted them to stay a lifetime with me. And if they were going to stay a good chunk of their career with me, I knew I was going to go through life with them.
Yes.
Outside of the building. That means they're having children, or they're going to funerals, and they've got stuff that happens in the family. And there's got to be times when I'm over supporting them, because there's lots of times when I ask for more.
That's right.
How many times did I say, can you work that double? Can you give me more now? Because your colleague needs a little time back. And so I think as the manager, it's critical to know what your employees are really feeling 360 outside of work in order to support them, throughout their career.
And I will say, administrators, while we are responsible for the care, we don't actually provide the care. Administrators have a very heavy load too. People in the sort of, I'm not going to say background, people in those support roles, there's a lot of stress around that. I mean, I know when I was an administrator and when I was the CEO, I was on call for 32 years, 24/7. And that mostly included vacation, by the way. There was kind of no such thing. Yeah. So that can be, very difficult from the stress standpoint. And also knowing that you're responsible to create all of this for other people it can be a
Mhm.
very heavy burden. So, I also shout out to all of them who are aware of the what that weight and take it seriously, because I think most people in leadership roles really do.
Hmm. That's really a great perspective. I haven't had that profession. I mean, I've had the
Mhm.
24/7 for my unit. But I've never had that, the whole weight of the
Mhm.
entire organization. Like your
Mhm.
license is
Yeah.
literally hanging on the wall. You're
Yeah.
right. That is, while that role's not a caregiver, they really are caregivers
Mhm.
of, like you
Mhm.
said, they're caring for, the staff, they're caring, for that building. And I think some of those, some of that advice, the next thing I want to talk about is like just kind of some day-to-day stress management. And,
Mhm.
I I try to encourage people to be very intentional about
Yeah.
5 minutes and your five senses.
Okay.
So, so your favorite 5 minutes with your favorite smell. Maybe it's tea, maybe it's aromatherapy. I do it in my office where in the morning I go put on an essential oil, and I'll smell them and think, what am I feeling today? Is it frankincense? Is it lavender? And I'll pick, an
Mhm.
essential oil. But I think about my five senses, and I think just for 5 minutes, what do I want to smell? What do I want to hear? What do I want to see? What do I
Mhm.
want to taste? And what do I want to touch? How do I want to be touched? Or what do I want next to me?
Mhm.
And I found that a caregiver, if I just say to them, every day you find for your five senses 5 minutes of joy. Be intentional about it. Don't miss a day. That's how you
Mhm.
take care of yourself. They'll get up in the morning and they'll put on their favorite, softest sweater because they know they're
Oh,
going
and
to.
what's what I was exactly thinking of that. Like, what feels better on a cold, if you're trying to take care of yourself and it's a chilly day, to put on like a cozy, soft, like squishy sweater. I was thinking exactly that when you were talking about the five senses and the touch.
And understand that that is you caring for you, and you're going to be
Mhm.
intentional. Listen to your favorite music for 5 minutes and say to your children, hold on, 5 minutes, put a timer on, go outside with your headphones, your deep breath, 5 minutes, your favorite music. Maybe you're seeing what you want to see because it's a beautiful day and you're looking out across but find joy through your
Mhm.
senses every day. And it works for caregivers. I think it works for every one of us.
Yeah.
It really came for me out of counseling with palliative care, and
Okay.
and people who wanted to be supportive at the time that a decision's been made. It's the end of life. Someone that you really care about is passing, and they'll say, "There's nothing I can do," and I'm like, "Oh
Mhm.
no, there's 5 things you can do." Think your friend, the favorite. Oh my gosh, it's that,
Yeah.
the mocha peppuccino or peppermint
Yeah.
coffee,
What?
whatever that thing
Yeah.
is that they love to smell or to sip or to hear or to see.
Mhm.
You can bring them those things. You can bring that, and you can bring 5 minutes of joy to their day. We don't know how many days they have left, but you
Mhm.
can bring joy through those five senses. And
Mhm.
when we're intentional about it and we acknowledge to ourselves, this is for me, this is my time, I think we can de-stress in those moments and just recenter ourselves, and then we're better. We're better able to give to others because we've taken care of ourselves.
Yes.
And listen, when you're on that airplane, they don't say put the oxygen on the child. No, no, no. They say, hey, take care of you first
Mhm.
before you can help anyone else.
That's
And I
right.
think as caregivers, we have to remember there's a lot on these shoulders. There's a
Right.
lot resting on our shoulders. And so in order to sustain and to be there for others, we have to take care of ourselves. It's really, really part of that mission. So every day,
Mhm.
5 minutes in your five senses, find that joy, be intentional about it, and really acknowledge that you're caring for yourself. And then take 10 minutes if you can, but at least,
Yeah.
and I know for some, actually 5 minutes is hard.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that for some that's hard. And for some, that means, giving a choice. And, this came up in my own family. It's missing your one exercise session a week is not a choice you're giving.
Right.
You can give the person you're caring for the choice of another caregiver or being by themselves if it's safe to do so. But you not going, that's not a choice to give them because you're not caring for yourself. So again, I think this is how we blend some strategies to be there for the long haul for the people that we love without, coming across that stage with half our clothes on and not remembering what to say because we're just a hot mess.
Yes.
Which is happens if you try to do, multiple roles.
Yes.
So hire the lawn boy, get the groceries, use DoorDash, have things delivered, or that's your 5 minutes, go off and make that your time.
Right.
Find those treats for yourself, get resources from the community as for your loved one, as well as for yourself, for support groups. And bring lots and lots of people into your play so you can play less roles and, kind of stick in those strategic spaces.
I love that analogy. That is such a great analogy. I'll never forget that.
It works it's always worked for me. It works in my head. I hear myself thinking, well, how would this work on stage? No, that's not going to work. Or when I would have to talk with my staff about the words that came out of their mouth that maybe wasn't part of my script as a director. And I would say to them, listen, I'm the clinical director here. And I understand you went into the room, you showed up, there was a call bell on, and you went in and you used some words that are not in the script. And so, you know how that goes. Like someone, oh, can you believe what your staff said to my mother? And then you go in and you're like, okay, well, that wasn't so good. So here's what you may say. How may I assist you? How may I help you? These are acceptable lines. Or, the same thing with uniform or change of clothes or coming on time. I would bring it all back to a play. It seemed like they could understand it. And so maybe they're true. Maybe it's true that all the world is a play.
I know, right? That's true. I love that.
Yeah.
So as we finish up, I want to, first of all, just thank all the caregivers that take care of people in those settings that we talked about at first, the assisted living, nursing homes, home health, hospice. And that's not only nurses, it's also folks who prepare all of the meals and clean the rooms. And, those are all, no one can make care happen without that team. It is a big sacrifice. There are so many more things that people can do to make a living that are easier and pay them better. And they still make the choice to make the difference in the world by showing love and concern for another human being. And also just those caregivers who have elected to stay with their loved ones at home. Wow. There just aren't words for the amount of responsibility that you have taken on. But please know that you're appreciated and that you're making a difference that no one else can. So we just sort of give you praise and homage for making the choice to allow yourself the privilege of taking care of someone else.
That's so true. And I'll close by saying to remember to take care of yourself. And that by taking care of yourself, you're not being selfish. In fact, you're really preparing yourself to be there for your loved one, for patients, in service, in emergency response, firefighters, police. These are all service roles. Taking care of yourself, your physical health and your mental health are essential. It's not so selfish. So I hope that some of the tips that I've shared today and will help you to set time aside, whether it's 5 minutes in your five senses or actually, Julian and April, there's the whole cruise where we're doing
I hope I can go.
For nurses. And a third of that education is on self-care and resilience and stress management because it's essential. We have a whole industry of service-oriented clinicians that if we don't take time to take care of ourselves, we won't be there to fulfill our passion. So remember that those opportunities are there. Make sure you take care of yourself so you can be there for others. And thanks for all that you do. And thanks for all that you do, Julianne. You make this conversation possible. You bring people together in a way that helps be a resource, right? This becomes a resource, those things we talk about. So thank you. Thanks for all that you do for others as well.
Well, I am so always grateful to have you on the show. And if you haven't watched, we do have an episode on this show where Cheryl talks about her book, Prepared. And so I would watch that if you are interested in this caregiving kind of shtick, because the book really is a beautiful guide to how to work through that healthcare system and give some great tips from the insider that Cheryl is, that helps people who haven't had the experiences. And then I do have to ask you that last question. What did you do to step into your life?
I know. And I shared with you the last time how I've really stepped into my life when I stepped from clinical practice into clinical informatics. And really this last year, I've stepped into my life through being vulnerable, authorship, putting words on paper, and then putting it out there for people to read, which sounds kind of easy and really is hard. It's really hard to do. But I found so many amazing connections, the collaboration, the opportunity to learn together and to grow together through other authors who are, again, willing to be vulnerable and step into their life and share. I think when we, and I can see you will on your bookshelf. I think when we read each other's stories, we identify and we realize we're not alone. That so many of us experience. It's just part of the human condition, but we're conditioned to keep things to ourselves. We're conditioned to feel very alone. And yet through the word, through finding your voice, through publishing a story, other people identify, and that brings us closer together. So for me, I stepped out of a comfort zone and into an amazing life filled with colleagues that I hadn't anticipated. And I'm just beginning to see the start of what that can come, what that can mean, what that can do, and how I can give back to others in that role.
I love it. It's been very fun to watch you embark on this new journey. And so you can find Cheryl's book on Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Yeah, Walmart, all the places where you normally buy books. Yeah, that's you can get prepared there.
Yeah, so feel free to go on and find that book if you are in the role of trying to figure out how to care for someone and get them through the steps of the healthcare system. You can also find a book that Cheryl and I wrote in together, You Can, You Will, on Amazon and Barnes and Noble and so on. And it's really a lovely book where 19 women share some pretty incredible stories of overcoming difficult situations. So anyway, thank you for being with me today. And I look forward to having you again on this show soon.
Yeah, thank you so much. And have a great week next week with all that you're doing. I know you're going to be a rock star.
Oh, thank you. And everyone, please join us again on Step Into Your Life, where we journey together and just support and bring up fun things and things that are hard and figure out how we continue to step into our life. So we'll see you soon.